Welcome, you all. This is Disrupting the Drift. I am Baron Baptiste. I am here with my friend David Masters. How you doing, David?
Fantastic, Baron. Great to be here.
Yeah, always good to be with you, buddy. I have a really good topic for us. Someone sent a question in today. It's a money question. It's a good one. Not
Okay.
about money, but money meaning it's got value, I think, for everyone. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. You all, thank you for joining us. We love sharing with you, and we ask that you share the show here. It's how we grow the show. This show is about disrupting the drift, and it's a space, a place where we can tell the truth and where the truth can be told. And David, how you doing?
Doing fantastic, man. Just, when I'm with you, it's double. It's double fantasticus.
I will take it. I will
Yeah.
take it. Yeah, good. You know, the world's in a difficult crisis level place, I say, and what I see. I tend to like to keep my mind out of the trash bin, and not get too deep and too steeped into everything that's wrong in society, everything that's going on in the world, the pain, the suffering. It's not that I'm wanting to avoid it. I want to be aware, but I also don't want to just take it in as a constant news feed into my brain and system. But with that said, you don't have to look very far, and you don't have to be that awake to see that the world is in crisis at a global level, at a local level, and at a personal, individual level. There's a lot of suffering, like a lot. I was looking at stats yesterday of the level of like the numbers of like depression that people are experiencing, the levels of anxiety, the levels in which people are taking psych, what are those medication?
Psychotropics. Yeah.
Yeah, psychotropics. It's
Yeah.
and the numbers of suicide and teen youth suicide, and how many people are not having maybe committed suicide, but they are grappling with the idea that they're thinking about suicide. It's staggering. It's staggering. Like the world in where humanity is at right now, at an individual level, collective level, it's there's a spiritual crisis. And I know you and I, David, we look at it through a spiritual lens. Like as spiritual beings, well, that's right there is a place to start, and then get into the mind, the psychology, and the body, the physicality, biology, health, fitness, but all the way down from spirit, creator to creature, and living a causative life where you are moving in a right direction, following the call of your conscience, your higher intuition. Well, David, what say you?
Well, there's one aspect that most people neglect about their lives more than any other, and that is their spiritual health.
Hmm.
And if you look at the instance of people who are unhealthy in terms of, their body weight, the fat to rate to health ratio, I mean, in my work right now, I deal with hundreds and hundreds of people a day, and a good portion of them, I would say 70% of them are just totally overweight. So what they're doing is they are filling the void,
Hmm.
and that's what they're doing it. And I could see how there's a temptation, a real powerful temptation, to
Hmm.
take something that feels good and substitute it for what is good. But the problem is it's easy to reach to something that makes you feel good, doesn't matter what it is. And as a matter of fact, I just read today that cannabis, smoking marijuana, may actually make your depression and make you feel worse. So instead
Hmm.
of, it relaxing you and make you feel better, it amplifies how you feel.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah. I
remember
just
Bill
yeah.
Bill Cosby saying one thing about, he was at a party and he was doing some cocaine, and or no, it wasn't him, it was somebody else. And he said, "So what is it about that drug that, he says, "Well, it enhances your personality." And he says, "But what if you're an a-hole?"
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of like money. Money can do that to people
yes.
too. Yeah, Uh-huh.
So I
It just expands what you already are, right?
it does,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, and then when you escape and you don't deal with your spiritual health, which is I think everybody gets like maybe a D minus on dealing with spiritual health, even people that go to church and they sit in the pews and they walk around praising God with their hands in the air, whatever they do, but it's an activity at that point. It's actually
Mhm.
not a true practice of reaching to God and putting everything with God. You're saying you're doing it, but the question is, are you really doing it? And most people they only know the external aspects of that. So the internal part of it is what's missing.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it a once a week kind of event and showing a certain kind of face?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
are you living it, right?
And
You
by the
really
way,
living it.
when
Yeah.
you do that, you're telling yourself, "Look, I'm going through all of the processes. I'm showing up. I'm I'm in agreement with all these great philosophical ideas." But in a way, it is kind of an ultimate virtue signal. Like, look at me. By
Mhm.
virtue of
Mhm.
the fact that I'm saying all the right things and I'm showing up once a week and whatever,
Yeah.
you can convince yourself that you're actually doing the right thing when in fact you're just dancing around the edges. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, and in a way, it's the ultimate hypocrisy.
Yeah,
If not lived,
yeah,
right? If
that's
not
right.
lived.
That's
Yeah,
right.
if it's just showcasing
Yeah,
and platforming, like
yeah,
virtue signaling
yeah,
what a good person you are. And,
yeah,
whether that's true for religion or the spiritual yoga people or the new agers or it's the new age old lie
yeah,
where it's a lot of pretense, a lot of trappings, a lot of the crystals, like incense, chanting, yada, yada, or in the pews at the church, looking good and playing all the outer to the exterior, what managing perceptions
yeah.
for others, but also even for yourself. Like you get a feeling arise that you're a good, warm person. And you could just take a warm bath at that point. You want to feel warm and fuzzy. Because it really takes it's there's nothing easy about it, right? It's like suffering is a part of life. And, as your father actually years ago said to me, for those of you who don't know, David and I go way back. I
Yeah,
used to be close to his dad before I worked for your dad and
yeah,
before I met you even, right? And then
yeah,
and then eventually start crossing paths. But your dad said, life is suffer. I remember he said to me one time, I can't remember I asked him something or he was saying something to someone or something and about something and I overheard and then I asked him, well, what do you mean about that suffering? Like, did you say that life is suffering? I was in my early 20s, right? So I was like so curious and learning and your dad had so much wisdom and he was a mentor to me and I said, what do you mean life is suffering? He said, well, life is suffering and he said there's I don't know if he used the word choice, but he said he said it like this, life is suffering and you can suffer in virtue to
mm,
become, a better human being, to, discover your potential and your connection with your creator and suffer in a way that builds character or you can suffer in mediocrity. I'm paraphrasing because it was a long time ago. You can
mm.
suffer for not. You're going to suffer, and what do you do with that? And you can build on the suffering that's already there. You can build on that, or not build. What would the reverse build of building is shrink
Deconstructing.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mhm.
you're breaking something
Yeah,
within
yeah,
yourself into a broken human being
yeah,
and people who live in victimhood or complaint or fault all of the time you're not growing, you're not taking what's thrown at you in life, the challenge, the adversity, and building a character through that and
yeah,
from that
that's
for
true.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other way of looking at it too is we are all going to suffer,
Yeah.
but the question is, are you choosing the reasons why?
Yeah.
Because if you're
Yeah.
not choosing the reasons why you're suffering, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
well, you have a default of choosing,
Yeah.
which is because you haven't chosen differently, then there's a default choice.
Yeah.
And that's why you're suffering. But you could change the reasons why you're suffering. And then it brings meaning into the suffering. Otherwise, it's just
Mhm.
meaningless suffering. And that's why people, you were
Yeah.
talking about suicide. People look at life and go, all I have is suffering. All I have is unhappiness. What's the point of all this? And then they think about, well, there's no point. So why not
Yeah,
just end it all right now? And
yeah.
it's sad because there's potential. Everybody has potential to suffer for the right reasons, which brings meaning into that suffering. And then from that meaning, you can actually derive a sense of accomplishment and joy and
Mhm.
happiness. But and
Yeah.
because then the suffering takes on a whole different reason for, and by the way, suffering is all subjective.
Mhm.
You know, I
Mhm.
mean, Kim
Mhm.
Kardashian suffers, but what is she? She suffers from a lack of certain kind of makeup or whatever it is, a comfy bed. You know, it's like
Or she's
what
not seen or perceived in a certain kind of way. I mean,
exactly. You know,
who knows
so
what she's like personally, but
it's
I
all
have no idea,
relative.
but it's relative what's put out. Well, a couple things come to mind. Jesus said, "Without vision, people perish."
Yeah.
So it's like if the and what that means to me is there's a having a vision. Then when you're hit with adversity, when you're hit with difficulty, and that's a part of life, but having a vision, it makes it all worth it. It gives meaning to whatever difficulty, whatever challenges, whatever you're facing. You're because you have vision that's bigger than yourself, greater than your something, a vision for something greater than yourself, whether that's serving other people, being a contribution, making a difference for starting with your own family, people closest to you, out to your inner circle, so to speak, your friends, if you have friends, maybe you don't, but from the inside, the individual out to the world, like a pebble to the pond, you're expressing something out, and it needs to be for the vision or having some thing that is bigger than yourself allows you to step outside of yourself. I like to call it, well, it's understanding. You're standing under something greater, like your creator or the bigger picture of life. Having a bigger vision gives purpose, it gives what you're speaking to meaning in life. And, the Zen have a saying that life, what is it? Life is, no, suffering is no, pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. That's it.
Ah, there's a
Pain
great one.
pain is inevitable and
That's so
suffering
good.
is
Yeah.
optional. And
Yes.
what does that mean? That's a whole other podcast. We'll need to do another
Yeah.
episode just on that
We
one.
should do that.
Yeah, let's dive into this question because I think
Okay.
what we're warming up to really in part, what this question is. It's very good. Thank you to the person who sent this in.
Yeah.
Please send your questions to Disrupting the Drift at Baron Baptiste, Disrupting the Drift at Baron Baptiste. We appreciate your questions. They give us a way to relate to you directly. And we frame these questions in such a way that they relate not only to you, the person who sent the question, but to all of you listening here. That's the goal. All right. So here's the question. I find myself in arguments often lately. And I feel like if I don't argue with others, I will be bending my knees and not standing up for myself. Do you have any insight on when it's appropriate to argue for your beliefs and when to throw in the towel?
I love that.
So that's good. Well, if you look at the world right now, the world is very divided. It's divided within families. People are divided, siblings, parents to kids. You're a parent, you're not talking to one of your kids, or you haven't or you're a sibling, you're not talk or you're you have people you work with in work environments, and you shun certain people, or you cold shoulder people, or all the way out to the political environment we're living in society, the division there, whether it's politics or division, almost on everything. It almost seems intentional that, like, there's some kind of evil force at work, or should we just say evil is at work, and it's dividing people, and starting within themselves out to people in their closer circles, whether they like it or not, whether they like those people or not. There's division happening out to more of the societal, global level. The world is divided. And I say you have to first get straight within yourself, get undivided within yourself, or find union within yourself, find integration within yourself. Stop
Yeah.
arguing, get out of your thoughts, your imagination, fantasy land in your head, and the stories that are divisive within your own self. And it starts there, I say, but stop arguing. That's what I would say. Stop arguing. But
Well,
what do you, and then, yeah, what do you say?
I think that you're going to find, no matter what, two places where you will encounter conflict. And those are obvious places, on the outside and on the inside. Now, the question is, it's not the conflict that's the problem, it is how you address it. And
Mhm.
let me just start by saying, for good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, and debate. That's from Margaret Heffernan. It's
Mm.
a brilliant quote because without it, then we end up, as you were talking about, we end up becoming more and more separate in order to avoid that kind of interaction that we find unpleasant. And why do we find it unpleasant? Because we are challenged. And I'll just give you an example of the Mormon church. At
Mhm.
the age of 18, they send out a pair of Mormons and they go door to door. And the reason they do that, which is
So on
absolutely
a mission, they go
on
on
a
a
mission,
mission.
yes,
Yeah.
on a
Mhm.
mission,
Like a
the reason they
2-year
do
mission.
that,
Yeah.
that's right.
I think the boys, the young men go out for 2 years. The young women go out, I think it's like a year and a half, something like
Yeah.
that, out on a
But
mission. Well,
but when I found
yeah.
out and I understood why they do it. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the Mormon religion, although it's another religion and it's viable for most people that practice it. And by the way, they're very nice people, but what they do is they make them defend their beliefs.
Mm.
That's the reason they go door to door, cold calling. And yeah, how many doors get slammed in their face? How many times has a door gotten slammed in anybody's face? And they get dejected? Do they become, unraveled by the fact that people don't
Yeah.
want to talk to them? So I want to go back to what Margaret Heffernan said. For good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, and debate. So the question then is, are you capable of defending your beliefs because you truly believe them? Because that was part of the question. When do you throw
Mhm.
in the towel? I say never throw in the towel. Or if you're dealing with somebody and the person is literally, and I know there are people going to be offended by this, but if you can't change stupid. If somebody wants to be stupid and they want to argue for stupid, that's the time to say, okay, I tried. I'm going to move along to the next person who maybe will hear what I have to say. You don't have an obligation to try to change stupid. And that's what I have to say about it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I get that. I get that. Well, what if, so this is how my take on it. And wait, on the Mormon piece, on the missions,
Yeah.
I think I, I 2 things. They are learning how to, I wouldn't use the word defend their positions, but and only from having lived in Utah and know the flow there. And I have a lot of great, friends that are Mormons,
Yeah.
and they're
I do
good
too, by the
people.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And but it's I'll use, instead of defend, I'll use the word stand, or a couple of words, stand in your convictions,
Mhm.
meaning you don't have to surrender your convictions, but it's like this. You don't have to, you can stand in them, where I don't think you need to, if you really are standing in your convictions and that deep inner knowing of what's true, you don't have to defend them. I think that there's a way of standing in them and standing for them. And this is what I was going to say about the missionaries, because I think they do, to your point, they stand in their convictions, and that's why they go to door. That's part of the training, but it's also to give other people the opportunity to live their convictions. So, and now I want to back up. So that aside, is I this is what I've learned about life, is that, and people, is people want you to think the way they think. If you look
Mhm.
at cancel culture, for instance, just look at social media, cancel culture, woke culture, that it's its own kind of cult, it's its own kind of beliefs, its own kind of thinking. And those people that cancel you, they're canceling you if you don't think the way they think. So it's to me that's on not defensive, it's more of an offensive when people are coming after you with a sword of you think the way I think, or I'm going to kill you off. And when I say kill you off, I'm going to ruin your life.
Oh,
I'm going
yeah.
to ruin your reputation.
Mhm.
I'm going to make you not be able to function if you do, in the world as a normal success human being or have any kind of if you don't think the way I think. And so I say this because to me to be able to stand in your center, to be centered and see where people are coming from. To me, that's always the question. Wait, where is this person coming from? And as soon as I feel pressure or some kind of obligation, like a pressure or an obligation from someone to think the way they
Let
think,
me interject.
then okay, right there, I'm like, well, wait, I can argue against this. But, there's that saying also from, was it Jesus who said, don't throw pearls
Pearl.
to swine?
Yeah.
And so it's a waste of time to argue with someone who's got a very strong position and you don't agree with that position, but can
Okay.
you agree without being
I got a couple of
disagreeable?
thoughts here that I
Or
don't
no, no,
wanna
no. So,
lose.
or can you disagree
Yeah.
without being on the defensive or in fight mode? Can you lay down your weapons and not bend or bow to within yourself and speak up when it's time to speak up, but don't drain yourself in and your energy in useless arguing.
So
Because yeah, you're not going to convince anyone
yeah.
like that of anything.
So we back in the, late '80s,
Yeah.
the talking about my dad and, what he was teaching,
Yeah.
People Magazine got
Mhm.
interested in doing a story,
Mhm.
and so they sent a reporter out, and he went around and interviewed everybody, my family, myself.
Yeah.
When he got to me, he asked me a question. He said, "How do you know that what it is that you believe and what you're teaching and what you've been taught is true?" And I thought, okay, this is a provocative question because see,
Mhm.
everybody's going to challenge you. How do you know that what you're saying is true? How do you know that you're right and you're not wrong?
Mhm.
And I said to him, and this I think was like a this was like an event horizon moment for me. I said, well, there's two kinds of people: those who have talents and those who have the ability to share deep mysteries, and those who can recognize them.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
said, I am
Mm.
one who recognizes what it is that is being revealed to me. So, and
Mhm.
this is the only way you can know, by the way,
Mhm.
that whether if you know the truth will set you free. Well, how do you know it's the truth? Well, the person who is providing you with whatever truth it may be, it doesn't matter what the truth is, by the way,
Mhm.
or whether or not you can actually see that it's true. Now, seeing that something is true is a gift.
Mhm.
See, it cannot be achieved through intellect. Although part of the intellect will show you that there are certain kinds of facts attached to certain kinds of truth, but then there's people who have intellects that say, "Well, we believe that love is love, and we believe the science." And even Richard Dawkins, who is an atheist, talks about the trans movement and saying, "Wait a minute, this is crazy. There are only two sexes." So if you just see that when you get to that point where you're challenged by somebody, and and by the way, let me read to you another quote. This is beautiful. Jean Rousseau said, "Insults are the arguments employed by those who are in the wrong." So when you get to that argument stage, when somebody's starting to insult you and try to make you feel small, there's one thing you could realize: they don't know how to
Mhm.
respond any other way because they don't have a truth. So now they're coming at you with cruelty. So,
Well, it's a way of winning, right?
right,
People will
it's a way of diminishing you.
it's a manipulation.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, if you don't think the way they think, because people are fixated on being right. Being right is like heroin to a human being,
Oh, it's
right?
dangerous.
But if you really stand in your convictions and stand for them, you don't have to be right about there's a natural rightness about it. a higher kind of righteousness that you know, and you know that your way of thinking has served you in your life, and you stand to not only stand in that for yourself, but you're a stand for others seeing a better way of life or living or
Ah,
looking at life, then you don't have to defend that. It's a knowing, but you also don't want to relinquish that. And if you're weak, and when I say weak, weak minded, in that you give in, you go along to get along, and you'll virtue signal. You will, okay, I'll take on this belief that these other people want me to take on blindly, and it doesn't measure up to, what did you say, the type of people that recognize.
yeah. There's people that are visionaries who see
Yeah,
the truth, and there are people who recognize that truth. There's
yeah,
2 kinds of people, and then
yeah,
the 3rd kind is the person that doesn't get it.
yeah. And then it's not arguing for, well, look, there's a great way of arguing, right? Like to debate
Mhm.
and to argue and learn, the learning and the discovery for yourself that can come out of that, the discovery for others who are listening in on that debate. And it allows for people to start distinguishing for themselves, to recognize truth from absurdity, or truth from lies, or truth from fantasy for themselves. That kind of debate is one thing, but I don't think that's what the question is here. We're talking about, if you find yourself arguing all of the time, what if you dropped the sword? And there's something about, this is what I'll say, consider that you have nothing to prove to anyone. And if you're arguing to prove something, so this is where you need to be inwardly reflective, and you also need to be able to doubt yourself. People are always talking about, well, don't doubt yourself, don't, just be confident means you don't doubt yourself. Well, but if you're misguided and you've taken on other beliefs, and you actually, they're not your own, they've been adopted.
Now
Yeah,
you're hitting on it.
and you're defending something that you don't even understand. You
Yeah,
don't fundamentally know at the
yeah.
deeper level of knowing. And now you're arguing for something you don't actually know or understand.
Now you
And
got it.
and now, and then you're arguing with someone else.
Yeah.
You're arguing with the devil in your own head, actually. And maybe it's someone on the outside of you that actually you see what's true. You see what's true, but you kind of sense, again, back to like not throwing pearls to swine. It's like you recognize that this person is so fixed in their rightness about something that's, they just don't see. It's like, well, now you're just arguing with the devil, in the sense, symbolically, and the devil and doesn't care about you. It won't help you when you're arguing and wasting all your energy
Now,
in useless arguing.
I've
It,
got the perfect
yeah,
I got the
just like people
perfect
on social media, you see it. It doesn't matter. They don't
yeah.
know you. They don't care about you. They just
No.
throw their opinions at you to tear down. But I say it's time to wake up. Wake
Now,
up and really see what you're dealing with, and
here's
know
the
when to
perfect
speak up and when not. Yeah.
here's the perfect connection to what you just said. Romans 7:15. For what I am doing, I do not understand, for I am not practicing what I would like to do, but I am doing the very thing I hate. Now, see,
Wait. Say that again. Read that again, or
okay,
say
here
that
it
again.
is. Romans 7:15. For what I am doing, I do not understand, for I'm not practicing what I would like to do, but I'm doing the very thing that I hate. Now, here's the second part of that.
Mm,
Romans 7:22 through 24. For in my inner being I delight in God's law, but I see another law at work in me,
mm,
waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work in me. Now, you just described it as a person who's brainwashed. That people don't understand the word sin. Sin is a hypnotic set of chains that's locked on your mind, and that's the side effect of brainwashing. A person who is not brainwashing is not living in a life of sin. They're living now intuitively. And this is exactly what we're saying. I'm not doing what I want to do. I'm
Mhm.
doing the very thing I don't want to do. Why am I doing that? If a person begins to ask that question, that starts to liberate them to begin to see things intuitively. And by the way, intuitively is the way that you come about the truth.
Mhm.
And so there are all kinds of truths in the world, but intuitively it means to know without reasoning. You don't have to figure it out. It occurs to you. It is revealed to you. That's where the word revelation, it's revealed to you
Mhm.
intuitively the difference between what is so and what is not so. And so when you get into conflicts with people, arguments, you begin to realize that that person, then you begin to come into this space of forgiveness. Forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. They don't even
Mhm.
understand themselves, that they're brainwashed. They're coming at you, like you said,
Mhm.
defending something that they don't even understand themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and why would you wanna waste your life force?
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you
Yeah,
why.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Okay, tell why.
if you are not changed by them, you have the counter effect. So you're not being changed by them.
Mm.
And as a result of that, you are having an effect on them that is
Mhm.
transformative. That eventually there's a domino effect that down the line, they might remember that conversation, AKA argument that you had, in which you didn't yield and you didn't get angry and you didn't get upset and you
Yeah.
just stood your ground, as you said. And so that has a transformative effect on people at some point in life. Either that or they go deeper into their denial, which is fine.
Yeah, yeah, no, very good. It's I like saying being unmessable with, uneffable with,
Yes, ineffable.
standing in your center,
Yeah.
and and being at cause for, if it's this lower level arguing and argument that I keep coming back to here, because there's what I hear you speaking to is a higher kind of argument for something bigger. It's not about, you know, being right. It's about, well, what is right? What is true? And you stand in that and you speak to that, come what may. And people are slinging mud, people are, and it comes back to this thing I said before. It's people want you to think the way they think. There's this whole movement in society now. It's a kind of cancel culture, but there's a whole cult of anti-cult that they're going after every religion
Yeah.
as a cult, or anyone people who have a body of beliefs that they share, they're like-minded people. And America originally, that's why people came to America, was to escape that kind of repression they were living under in Europe and like that. And but the freedom of religion, so where I get to have my beliefs, you get to have your beliefs, we can speak freely about that. But we can debate that, but we don't have to submit. This new cult of anti-religion, anti-cult, anti-anything, those people want you to think like they think, and they organize and for like a conspiracy. They gather others around them who think like they think, and they're like, okay, all cults are bad. Mormonism is bad, Christianity is bad, Judaism is bad, and whatever the thing, they'll just argue only to get other people to think like they think. If you don't think like they think, then they call you names. They go, "Oh, you're in a cult, or you're a racist, or you're a something, right? You're a victimizer. They'll just call you terrible things, and they'll get because you don't think the way they think." But what we're speaking to here is, well, no, think for yourself. Think for yourself.
Yeah.
Be convicted in that. Don't surrender that, and stand for that. And I also say, be able to doubt yourself, but you have to be aware and awake to doubt yourself within yourself in the right kind of ways. If I see that I'm fighting for something that I don't actually understand, maybe I need to doubt that from and question that. There's a kind of if you don't have the ability to doubt yourself in that way, or repent is a way of saying it, to beliefs that aren't your own. And I like to say groupthink starts right in the family. Your family, when you were small, parents kind of bred you to think the way they think, and
Mhm.
intentionally, probably not. It's just how it went unintentionally. And you adopt all these ideas and views, and
Well,
you
can
learn to
I
think. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, here's a quote that totally validates what you just said. And this is from a guy named Steve Biko, who was a South African, leftist who was an agitator, and he was one of those people that goes out and tries to shift the entire population, right? Here's what he said: "The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." When a person
Wait,
gets
wait.
yeah,
Mhm. Wait,
the
wait, say
most
that again, say that
the
again.
most
Yeah,
potent
yeah.
weapon
Mhm.
in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Once somebody gets a hold of your brain,
Mhm.
you become their weapon. They send
Mhm.
you out and boom, and there you
A
are out.
pawn, a pawn. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Now here's the other one. With and going back to defending your position, I like the idea of defending my position
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
here's what William Preston said:
Yeah.
"Without temptation, you have no claim to virtue," which means it's good for you to be challenged. It's good for you to get into an
Mhm.
argument. It's good for you because it actually magnifies. You become a force magnifier of your belief when
Yeah.
you're able to stand for it.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
last thought on that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. I get that. And though, here it is. That what you said, and not having to, being at choice, so that you're not locked in, like fixed in such a way that's rigid, where you lose your own freedom.
Mhm.
If you come down to argue with the devil, so to speak, it wants you to come down and argue. Or those people operating out of that kind of frequency, where, again, where are they coming from, is, I think, key, because you can lower down, come down below the line, a lower frequency. They want you to come down to their own level, to defend, to fight, to get into that kind of flow. Now, what I hear you saying is, well, defend, stand up and speak out. And yes, and though I say, to be free within yourself, to know when to fight,
Mm.
to defend, to speak up, to speak for some something great, truth, something greater than yourself, and when to walk away, when to know, no, this is just throwing pearl before swine. This becomes my distraction. This,
Yeah.
it takes me down.
Oh, and
This
by the way,
this actually, and arguing may not be the way
yeah.
to actually enlighten another who's just not ready,
Well,
kind of
that's a
thing.
great point.
Yeah,
That's a great
yeah,
point because you have no obligation to do to them what they are doing to you. They're trying to convince you to come over to their side. You don't
yeah,
have any obligation to do that. You
yeah,
only have an obligation to yourself, to thine own self be true. Be true to yourself. When you see that it's a sort of a no, there's a new point to it, then you go, okay, nice
yeah.
talking to you. See you later.
Yeah, yeah, I'll give you an
That's it.
example. If
Yeah.
you're arguing with someone who's upset,
Yeah.
they're upset, they're highly emotionalized in a moment, and you engage at that arguing at that level of emotionality and
Yeah.
upset, and they're angry, their fears in the background. It you're speaking into a void. They can't hear you.
Yeah.
And so you're bleeding out your own life force. And it's like, and if it's someone close to you, your partner, your husband, your wife, your kid, your sibling, your coworker, whoever, or on social media, it's like, well, when is it better to just walk away, let the dust settle, and then come back to it when the dust is settled? when there's less upset, less
Yeah.
emotion, less,
Yep.
or how much energy is on social media where you're arguing and fighting mostly with a ghost. You're arguing and fighting with yourself, but it becomes this distraction, this diversion that, especially if you have people who have purpose in life, they'll 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 get on there and say what they see and think and believe, but they won't necessarily hang out there long.
No.
They won't come down to all the arguing with the people attacking, and because it takes you off of purpose. It takes you off of true north, potentially. Again, to have the wisdom to know when it's wise to argue or stand up or defend to your point, and when to just lay down the weapons. You don't need to be arguing with
Well, you could put your samurai
someone
sword
like that.
back in its sheath on your back and walk away.
Yeah, yeah, and come
You
back
don't
and
have to fight.
fight another day, or
Yeah.
go where there's debate and argument, but for two people arguing different points of views, but for something higher, something greater. There's some bigger purpose than just the two people. Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Really good. I Let's wrap up here. Any last
Yeah.
thoughts?
I will just say that a person who has come to understand that all your thoughts are not your own is more free
Mm.
and establishes a challenge just by being more free to a person who doesn't know that all their thoughts are not their own. And that can actually provoke, when you're a free thinker, when you're a free mind, you can provoke a person who is imprisoned in their own mind. And just by
Mhm.
virtue of the fact that you just see things as they are, you can upset people, and it's okay. It's
Mhm.
just okay.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
all I have to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Very good. When to have that, to me, at last thought, is it comes down to being awake in
Yeah.
yourself.
Yep.
Awareness. Get still, find your center. If you find yourself in an argument, a place to and you're aware of, where am I coming from? You're aware of, am I coming from conviction, and it's actually time to draw the line in the sand and speak true, or I've lost my center. I've lost my center here. Now I'm engaging in emotionality, anger, locking horns. If you're locking horns, you've lost yourself. You've
Yep.
lost center. And to
Amen.
be able to recover center, it may mean you need to walk away in the moment, or it means in the moment you don't walk away, but you drop the emotionality. You drop all the triggered, the thoughts, the emotions, all the activated, your systems activate, to drop all that, get present, stop, just pause, just even for a nanosecond, drop down into your body, let your mind get catch up to your body, to the physical universe, get present to what you're listening to. Are you listening to an argument in your head and or with this other, and through to this other person, or are you coming from a place of truth in yourself, reality in yourself, and know when to walk away and when you're just throwing pearl to swine? Yeah, pearls are wisdom, right? Or pearls
Yeah,
are
well, pearls
truth.
have value.
Or pearls that
Pearls have
have
great price, right?
pearls have value.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great price. Yeah, very good. All right, you all, thank you, thank you. Please share the show. We appreciate you sharing, and we are growing. So be well, and peace out to you all. Stay blessed, stay safe, and till next time.